The 17th Annual International CIFA Forum, the Convention of Independent Financial Advisors, kicked off at the United Nations headquarters in New York. CIFA Secretary General officially opened the ceremony by urging participants to be open in their exchange of ideas during the two-day forum, while highlighting CIFA's significance in bringing new innovative ideas to the table year after year.
Forum for exchange, for ideas. Speech is free. People are entitled to say what they feel and bring new ideas to the table.
The forum started with a tribute to the memory of the late ambassador to the Kingdom of Thailand to the U.S. and chair of Group of 77 for 2016, who participated in past CIFA events and who shared CIFA's vision of bringing innovative ideas together.
He was highly dedicated to the cause of peace and international reconciliation, and devoted his time and energy and strength to this greater cause. Ambassador Plazai has always supported the collaboration that transcends borders. We will miss him and his work in this tumultuous world.
Those words were followed by a moment of silence. This year's CIFA theme of how to mobilize private finance towards funding the UN Sustainable Development Goals brought diplomats, UN officials, and independent international financial advisors and thought leaders together for a frank and open discussion on how CIFA can assist the UN on reaching its ambitious Sustainable Development Goals of 2030.
What we want to achieve as a first goal is to be able to come back next year, so that our message that we're bringing this year will be considered constructive, and that this constructive message will stimulate those who come to listen to us to re-invite us so that next year we can take a further step. This is a slow process. We're not going to achieve anything in 2 days. And the ideas we have are not going to become mainstream in 48 hours. It's a long process that is a new start for CIFA. We're the first NGO in the history of the United Nations who holds its forum inside the United Nations headquarters here in New York. And for us it is important to establish ourselves. And next year we have already been invited by the Forum for Development to speak, but this is just the beginning.
So what we hope to accomplish at this CIFA conference is to get various thought leaders to highlight achievements, highlight progress, highlight the challenges, whether it be regulation, whether it be the harmonization of standards, whether it be to work together in a collaborative manner. For example, taxation is a big issue. Increasing taxes would create maybe more problems, but reducing taxes may not, it could be an incentive to redirect resources that the private sector could use to make things, more possible.
The theme is linked to empowerment, equality, and inclusiveness. So this theme is launched a year in advance, and all the UN agencies, all the UN bodies give their thought, their recommendation on the theme from their perspective. So it's fascinating to know that you are going to hear from so many experts worldwide giving a recommendation on a difficult issue. What is the issue at stake? Money. There is no money.
The United Nations estimates that $5 to $7 trillion a year are needed to realize the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development worldwide. With that target being 11 years away, participants agreed that an effective private-public partnership is essential for a successful outcome to all of the 17 SDGs.
CIFA, being the only global investment organization granted general consultative status by ECOSOC, has a passion and deep interest in the successful outcomes of all 17 of the SDGs. Clearly, the private sector has a huge role to play and can play an even bigger role in the realization of the SDGs. But first, it requires a change of heart. Then everything else will fall in place. Therefore, I consider our overarching theme, how to mobilize private finance towards funding the UN SDGs, incredibly timely and relevant for this year's CIFA conference.
Meanwhile, the Jamaican ambassador to the United Nations and member of the group of Friends of SDG Finance stressed on the need for a vibrant private sector in developing countries to reach the SDGs.
Only by realigning the macroprudential regulatory institutions that set policy incentives in the global financial system can we mobilize capital and resources at the speed needed to bring resilience to national economies and at the scale required to avoid catastrophic systemic collapse in the wake of the next global financial crisis. To achieve the necessary transition and put the global economy on a track to achieve the 2030 agenda, we must engage the leaders of the World Bank Group, the IMF, the Basel Committee that manages the Basel III Agreement, the European Commission entities responsible for the process governing Solvency II, and the Task Force on Climate-Related Risk Disclosure. In fact, safeguarding the global economy and sustaining the conditions needed for normal international trade relations requires that we rethink the role of operational strategies of all development finance institutions.
The passionate discussion on eradicating poverty started with a keynote address by Farina Zahari.
We all know what makes poverty smaller. It's economic growth, it's productivity growth, and for that you need a small government, a small taxation, small regulatory burden to precisely encourage people to trade, to do more entrepreneurship, to invest, to save. You have to make these productive activities more profitable, and it's not very compatible with having a big government to intervene in the economy.
He screened the documentary Poverty Inc. before discussing how poverty is big business, and one can't help but ask, who profits most? The panelists debunked the myth that outside aid is always needed to eradicate poverty in the world, notably in Africa.
Western Europe didn't start its own industrial revolution in the 19th century with foreign aid. The United States of America has not become the world's leading economic power thanks to foreign aid. The 800 million Chinese who escaped from poverty during the 3 last decades since the reforms of Deng Xiaoping have not become richer thanks to development aid too. And that's the same thing for other rich countries today.
The Director of Financing for Sustainable Development Office, Department of Economic and Social Affairs at the United Nations, Naveed Hanif, stated that financing is at the root of reaching the SDGs. He called for the return of faith in multilateralism and collective action.
First and foremost, the private sector needs to see this as an opportunity and design their products around these opportunities which are profitable and yet good for people, planet, and prosperity. Second, they should also advocate for the regulatory measures that should be taken by governments and incentives to modify that behavior. That's absolutely essential. And third, measurable results should be shown to the world. It just should not be an exercise in public relations. We should make an impact in individuals and people's lives and to save our planet.
Mr. Hanif highlighted the 2019 Financing for Sustainable Development report, in which it finds that despite signs of progress, investments that are critical to achieving the SDGs remain underfunded, calling for urgent global and national action.
The message from the cover page is, if you do not fix the roots, which is financing, the trees of SDGs will not flourish or bear fruits. Financing is at the root of this agenda. We need to fix all those 7 flows of financing, which includes domestic resource mobilization, investment, which we'll address in a little while, debt, trade, technology, and development cooperation.
Throughout the day, Q&A sessions were encouraged as keynote speakers engaged with other participants and offered ideas and solutions to the topics discussed. The 17th Annual CIFA Forum takes place at the epicenter of policymaking for global affairs, the United Nations. Having general consultative status with the UN's Economic and Social Council, known as ECOSOC, CIFA brings to the table its in-depth knowledge of the financial industry. Afternoon discussions focused on addressing inequality and challenges to inclusion through fiscal, wage, and social protection policies.
We are all familiar with the headlines such as widening inequalities, lack of equal opportunities, lack of access to opportunities, persistent unemployment, stagnating wages, rising costs of healthcare, and I could go on and on and on. That's why I said I asked if I can write an encyclopedia, because each of these would require a volume. The issue of inequality definitely has become the focus of the policy debate. This is clear. For instance, in the United Nations this year, we had the Commission for Social Development. Now, the division I lead, which is correctly the name, is a Division for Inclusive Social Development in the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. This division supports, among various intergovernmental processes and mechanisms, one that actually was created immediately after the creation of the United Nations. So it's a very old, not old in terms of not updated, but old in terms of seniority and wisdom mechanism, that is the Commission for Social Development. And this year, the focus of this commission opened a dialogue on social development issues by taking as priority theme, I have to read it because it's kind of complicated, addressing inequalities and challenges to social inclusion through fiscal, wage, and social protection policies.
Wages have not been increasing, and that's why we're seeing the middle class being disappearing. And then as the middle class disappear, you see the election that we're seeing with the right-wing movement growing around the world. It's really a messy world that we've put ourselves into by not addressing inequality. And we're back to inequality level that were there before the antitrust breakup at the beginning of the century. And so we need to do something, especially because a lot of the environmental issues that we're dealing with, like climate change and biodiversity losses and the state of our ocean, basically we have about 10 to 15 years, depending on who you listen to address those. And oftentimes, the elite that capture most of the revenues do not have this as their top agenda items, and therefore they don't get addressed in our legislatures. And therefore, that's another reason why we need to address inequality. So inequality is extremely important. And one of the things also that, because we work with UNCTAD, the UN Conference on Trade Development, we're a focal point at the UN for investment, trade, development, finance, technology, and entrepreneurship. And there's more illicit financial flows going out of developing countries than there actually are official development aid. So if these countries could actually, if together as a community, we could cut some of those illicit financial flows that go in these paradise like we've seen, then government would have the resources to be able to invest in education, health, transport, safe transport, sanitation, water, energy, the basic services that people need. Otherwise, when these services are not provided, it's the poorest of the poorest that get affected the most.
Panelists also discussed strategies to reduce inequality as a means to eradicate poverty.
It's very clear that businesses that operate in societies that thrive are going to be more successful, and therefore there's a great incentive for any business investment to also take into account the broader environmental, social, governance context in which these entities operate.
The day closed with a lively debate on the root causes of inequality in society.
Share the concern that we should be focused more on fighting poverty, not on fighting inequality, because here's the question I want to pose to the people who spoke. If you had a magic wand and you could increase the income of every poor person in the world by 25% tomorrow, But waving that magic wand would also increase the income of the richest 10% by 30%. Would you do it? You would be increasing inequality. Your Gini coefficient would get worse. But is that a choice that you would be willing to make?
I have nothing against people making money. And actually, we go back to Adam Smith. But Adam Smith said, we used to think it was a bad thing to make money, remember? Until Adam Smith says, it's okay to make money because then you're going to reinvest the money into the capital asset and then you're going to create jobs and then people are going to get out of poverty. What's wrong with this? People that are making money now do not reinvest the money in productive capacity. They don't. The money goes back to the financial system with new financial instrument, which create this bubble in the financial sector. If that money got reinvested in the productive capacity, we wouldn't be where we are right now. I don't care if they make a lot of money. Good for them. But please, by God's sake, reinvest the money. This money is not reinvested. We're not creating jobs.
The problem of inequality is not just financial inequality, it's civil and political inequality, which is buttressed by financial inequality. So yes, it is a problem if the rich get so rich that they control the democratic process. That's a problem, Dan. And it is a problem not because they're rich, but because some people are rich and because some people are less rich, but because this infects the entire social fabric. And if what we're trying to do is solve the Sustainable Development Goals, and if, as this has been said repeatedly today, requires the stakeholders across the spectrum to be involved, then everybody has to care about what the total impact, not just the tax or financial impact, but the total impact of everybody's behavior. And this means we have to have a symbiotic participation in attaining the Sustainable Development Goals.
The first day of CIFA's historic forum here at the United Nations concluded with what participants called a productive exchange of ideas. The event was broadcast on the UN webcast system and can be watched anytime by logging onto the UN Web TV website. The second and final day will bring an in-depth look at CIFA's perspective regarding the challenges and opportunities facing the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. Reporting for CIFA, I'm Susan Madaris at the United Nations.